the creativity of anthropology derives from the tension between the demands for explanation of human universals on one hand and cultural particulars on the other.
Women provide us with one of the more challenging problems to be dealt with. The secondary status of women in society is one of the true universals. Upon
The universality of female subordination, the fact that it exists within every type of social and economic arrangement and in societies of every degree of complexity, shows to me that we are up against something very deep.
something that cannot be fixed merely by reorganizing a few tasks and roles in the social system, not even by reining the whole economic structure.
First, it is important to sort out the levels of the problem.
In this documental, we will analyze the universal fact of culturally attributed second-class status to women in every society. Two questions are important here. First, what do we mean by this? Where is our evidence that it is a universal fact? And second, how are we to explain the fact having established it?
What do we mean when we say that everywhere in every known culture, woman is considered inferior to men? First of all, we must stress that we are talking about cultural evaluations. We are saying that each culture in its every own way and its own terms makes this evaluation. But if the devaluation of women relative to men is a cultural universal, how are we explaining this fact?
We could, of course, rest the case on biological determinism. There is something genetically inherent in the males of the species that makes them the natural dominant sex. That something is lacking in females, and as a result, women are not only naturally subordinated but, in general, quite satisfied with their position to maximize the maternal pleasure that to them are the most satisfying experience of life. But this position, it was failed to convince very few in academic anthropology.
Our thesis is based on three aspects: the consideration that women are closer to nature, the psychology of women that is involved with the time life of species, and the psyche of the women molded appropriately for maternal functions by her own socialization. We must attempt to interpret female subordination in light of other universals of human condition, built into a structure of most generalized situations that all human beings, in whatever cultures, find themselves in.
There's a question. What could there be in the generalized structure and condition of existence common to every culture that will lead every culture to devaluate women?
Our thesis is that woman is being identified as a symbol of something that every culture devalues, something that every culture defines as being a lower order of existence itself. Now it seems that there's only one thing that would befit this category, and that is nature in the most generalized sense.
Now, the categories of nature and culture are of course categories of human thought. There is no place out in the real world where one could find some actual boundary between the two states or realms of being. Every culture makes the statement that the proper relationship between human existence and natural forces depend upon cultures contributing its special powers toward regulating the overall process of the world.
Returning now to the issue of women, the pancultural devaluation of woman could be accounted for, quite simply, by postulating that woman is being identified with or symbolically associated with nature, as opposite to men, who is indicated with culture.
It is always culture's project to subsume and transcend nature. If woman is a part of nature, the culture will find it natural to subordinate, not to say oppress her. That means that women are seen merely as being closer than nature than men. The next question is why she might be viewed that way.
It all begins, of course, with the body. Her body and its functions are more involved for a species' lifetime, seem to place her close to the nature as opposed to men, whose psychology frees them more completely to projects of culture.
Her body and its function put her in a social roles that are in the turn considered to be at a lower order of culture, in opposition to the higher orders of the cultural process.
Her traditional social roles, imposed because of her body and its functions, turning give her a different physical structure. And again, this physical structure, like her psychological nature and her social roles, is seen as being more like nature.
In short, the postulate that woman is viewed as closer to nature than men has several implications for further analysis and can be read in several different ways.
If femaleness is read simply as a middle position of the scale to culture to nature, then it is still seen as a lower than culture and thus accounts for the pancultural assumption that women are lower than men in the order of the things.
If it is read as a mediating element in the culture-nature relationship, then it may account in part for the cultural tendency not merely to devaluate women, but to circumscribe and restrict their function, since culture must maintain control over its mechanism for conversion of nature in culture.
Ultimately, of course, it must be stressed that all scheme is a construct of culture, rather than a given of nature. Woman is not in reality any closer nor farther from nature than man. Both are consciousness, both are mortal. But there are certainly reasons why she appears to be that way.
The result is a vicious circle. Many aspects of woman's situation, physical, social, and psychological, lead to her being seen as a closer to nature, while the view of her as a closer to nature is embodied in institutional forms that regenerate her situation.
The implications for social change are similarly circular. A different cultural view can grow only out of different social actuality. A different social actuality can grow only out of a different cultural view. This documentary is based on an article called Is Female to Male as Nature is to Culture?
By the great anthropologist Sherry Ordner. Thank you.
Thank you.